Okay, back again in the old trailer in the backyard. It's empty, so I'm using it as kind of a recording studio, you might say. Alright, check my time, 3:18. This book is Margie Answers You. I'm sure it's not in print anymore. It had a very limited printing anyway, I think. Margie is the little girl that came through Richard, or as a child, and has grown up in this spirit world, or astral world, and acts as a doorkeeper. This is questions from the audience and her answers. So I'll pick out a few at random. Someone had asked about had Richard conducted seances in any other language but English. She says, in Trinidad, Colorado, about 19 miles away was the mining camp called Aguilar. It was there that Richard's father was interested. This is where they lived. The town of Aguilar was populated mostly by Mexicans and Italians. He began to hold seances there. He didn't have many white people in his audiences, but mostly Mexicans and Italians. Richard wore knee pants and would sit in a chair. He would go into trance and come out and produce the power, and at times there would be 4 or 5 trumpets going through the air at once, and they were speaking in Spanish or in Italian or both. He thought it was all very wonderful, even though he couldn't understand a word of what was going on. When the seances were over, however, they all, each in their own way, told him how wonderful they thought it was to be able to converse with their loved ones in their own language. There are many fascinating stories I could tell you of his work at that time. Well, they asked for one of the stories. Well, I might tell you of the Mexican who came through the trumpet one evening and cursed and swore and was very violent and very angry. He carried on something awful. He spoke only in Mexican, but he said that he had been murdered and that his body was over at Walsenburg, about 3 miles away, lying under a bridge with his arm sticking out in plain sight. He wanted his friends to get his body out of there, so Richard's father and others went to Walsenburg, and the next day and found the body under the bridge just where the Mexican said it would be. It was lying half in the water and half out, covered with brush, but with one arm sticking out in plain sight. They removed it and reported it to the authorities and buried it. And then it goes on about a Chinese person that spoke in Chinese to his loved one through Richard. Anyway, let's just go to some of the questions that might be of interest. There's no index, so I'll have to skim through. Here's one. In the spiritual world, are you less individualized as persons than we are in this dense world? Indeed not. You are not any less when you are in the astral world than you were upon the earth plane. You are the same individual with the same thoughts, emotions, and desires. If you are belligerent upon the earth plane and you have not conquered that obstinacy, you will be belligerent in the astral plane, or dictatorial, or egotistical, or whatever your character might be. Does everyone in spirit life have your concept of God, or are there many different beliefs and religions in spirit, just as there are here? To answer this question, first you must understand that the only God that you and I shall ever know is our individual concept of Him. Therefore, in the astral world, just as here on earth, on the earth plane, I may have my concept of God, you have yours, and the many have theirs. Therefore, you don't know any more about God in the astral world than when you were on the earth alive, so-called alive, quote-unquote. Many newly arrived in the spirit world, when they realize they are alive, they will cry out that they want to see Jesus. They are often very insistent, and when they find they are not going to see Jesus, they are disturbed and confused. But we're all in the same category on the astral plane as we were on the earth plane. We don't know any more about Jesus or about God when in the astral than we do during our stay on earth. It is only when we genuinely desire to seek the higher and want a better knowledge and a better explanation that is given to us. Here's an interesting one. I was told that as a result of a miscarriage, I have a little girl in spirit, but she is not the age she would be if she had been born here. Do children grow up normally in the spirit world, or do they remain children indefinitely? A child that has been denied birth can grow up in spirit in the astral world, precisely as it would on the earth plane. If the child had been there 10 years, it would be the equivalent of a child of 10. A young lady of 20 would be the equivalent of a 20-year-old here on the earth plane. Many a father and mother entering the astral world are confronted with fine, mature, beautiful beings whom they are told are their sons and daughters, and whom they are almost at a loss to accept because these children perished in babyhood. However, at times after a miscarriage, a child is born at the next pregnancy, and the child who was denied birth at the miscarriage is in all probability the child that came in at a later date. Here's another interesting one. I forgot the time it started. Well, try senior moment. I have seen many who attended their own funerals. I have been with those who took it lightly, and of course others took it very seriously. When I say lightly, I want to explain myself to you by saying that we have just as many comics in the astral world as you have here upon the earth plane. They have been born with a sense of humor, and they never cease expressing themselves in a humorous way during the course of their lives. When at last they find themselves in the astral world, you would think they would change. Not necessarily. In the astral world, your personality remains the same. Some, of course, are quite miserable, but it is their loved ones that make them so. But I have listened to the clowning and to conversations that I only wished the people on earth would look at death with such a long face were tuned in to hear. Well, I'm sorry, people on the earth plane who look at death with such a long face were tuned in. Do we have the same sense of sight in the astral as we do here on earth? Not exactly. In the astral, the vision is not filtered through the mind, which you must remember is a physical organ and subject to physical deformities and deficiencies. Therefore, your astral vision is much clearer, much keener than you have here on the earth plane. Well, I can confirm that from my own visits during sleep. How do colors in the astral world compare with colors on the earth? Well, if I remember, they're much more intense. The most striking thing about colors in the astral, although the colors are identical, in that the astral color seems to glow and have depth, much more vividly so than any pigmented color here on earth could possibly do. The basic structure of dyes and of colors here on earth prevent them having that glow to them, which is so much a feature of astral colors, and so all the things on the earth plane seem dull and flat by comparison. That's interesting because in my book Dorothy's Mystical Adventures in Oz, I talked about Kansas being drab compared to Oz, and the colors that I remember seeing of the flowers were just incredible, absolutely incredible. So we've got a lot to look forward to, but hang on as long as you can here, because we're here for a good reason, and we'll go soon enough, even if we live to be 90 or 100. It's not that long of a lifespan, looking back, I'm sure. Well, there's a lot of good stuff in here. I don't think I'll read this one just yet. I'll save it for next time. Do people in spirit have all the different organs of the body? Is there sex as we know it in the spirit world? Why don't I save that for the next one? That should be interesting. You might say, do we lose our humanity or human feelings? Okay. That's page 24. Let me turn the camera. I can't remember, but it'll tell me on the camera what time, how long we're into the thing here. Hang on. Oh, time's up. Okay, time's up.